こんにちは。私の名前はホーコンです。もっと日本語を学びましょう。Hello, my name is Hakon, and let's learn some more Japanese. Last few times I've done our first kanji, I've done questions, answers, demonstratives, some really basic things, but I think we are going to get a little bit stuck without learning katakana. And the reason is katakana is used for all non-Chinese and loan words in Japanese, which means it's used for all country names, for instance. So, and katakana, if you remember from my earlier episodes, is one of the three writing systems used in Japanese. You have all the Chinese characters, the kanji, the Han characters, literally, the characters of Han Chinese, which are used for the meaning content primarily. And then you have two different systems of syllable writing. One is hiragana, which is used for grammatical endings, particles, for words of Japanese origin, also Chinese loan words, actually, as long as you don't use the kanji. And then you have katakana, which primarily is used for loan words from other languages besides Japanese or Chinese. They're also used for foreign personal names, book titles, film titles, album titles, etc. And in the basic form, they have exactly the same characters as hiragana, the same 46, I think, characters. And then you have the diacritics, the dakuten, the handakuten that you use to change the voicing of the characters to create further characters. And just like in hiragana, you can also combine characters to create further ones, like how you combine anything from the E line, like ki, for instance, together with ya to make kya with hiragana. But in katakana, there are actually a further set of combinations you can use to create different sounds that do not exist in the Japanese language, but which are possible to create for a Japanese person, that it can be used for foreign words. Now, usually it's not used for words that are used in the language, like a proper loan word. It's used for if you have a name or a title of something that's being transliterated into Japanese. Only then normally would you use the further set of characters or further set of combination of characters to create those in Japanese. So let's just get started. So it follows the same pattern as hiragana. If you remember, aka, satana, hama, yara, wa. That's the order of them again. So let's start with a, i, u, e. The line of the u is a bit long there. Let's make it a bit shorter. O, a, i, u, e, o. One thing you will notice with katakana is that they are more stylized, just like the Chinese characters, but they contain just a small part of the Chinese characters. And so there are fewer possible strokes and they will look more like each other than the hiragana. And because you also use the katakana less than hiragana, it might be easier to confuse them and mix them up. So very soon you will encounter katakana that look a lot like each other. And some look a bit like hiragana as well, like the ka here. It's just missing that little thing at the end. Ki, also very much like its hiragana counterpart. It's ku, ke, ko. And then next is sa. She. And notice now I'm writing the sheaf, the long line on the sheaf from the bottom, and the angle is relatively low. Very important to note because there will be other characters that are very similar to this. Su, se, and so. and this is similar to shi, but the long line comes from the top. Now, and this has got one dot and it's got two dots there. So very important to distinguish between characters that have the line starting from the bottom and the ones with the line starting from the top. The angle must be distinctive, and so you can tell them apart, because otherwise they will look too similar. So it's a very important thing to keep track of. Now these lines here, they're sort of both curved down a little bit, and if you use the Dakuten with this character, the Dakuten is smaller, so it would be like so. So that's a G. So remember, of course, with the K and S line here, you can also add the Dakuten. That looks a bit like, oops, quotation marks to create ga, gi, gu, ge, go, and za, ji, zu, ze, zo. Next is the T line. See, that looks very much like ku. That's ta. Chi. Tsu. Notice this is very much like shi, but the last line, the swash, is starting from the top, just like it does on so, and so the angle is much sharper. So shi. So let's do like that fully, and tsu. These are so easy to mix up, so it's important to work a little bit to make sure that you write them correctly, and also when you're reading, make sure you read them correctly as well. Te and to. It's na, ni, nu, ne, one of my favorites for some reason. No, which is just that line down, just like in so and tsu, but without the little other dots there. Ha, hi, hu, he, which is exactly like the hiragana he, ho, ma, mi, mu. The mu is almost like a rotated, is it rotated or is it mirrored? Like a mirrored and rotated ma. Me. And mo. So you see there are still lots of characters that are like each other. You have the su, nu, fu, very similar kind of swash there. All these shi, so, tsu, no, very similar as well. So it's needs a lot of practice just to read and write, to make sure that they're all correct. What's the next one? Hamaya. So it's ya, ya, you, yo. And of course, because of the way you make the glides, the kya, kyu, kyo, kya, gyu, gyo, etc., and of course you end up using these characters quite a bit, and those are some of the ones you learn the best. Also, things like the tsu, because you're using it to double consonants, you use that quite a lot as well. So some of them you will be using a lot more than others, and you will remember them better. Da, ri, du, re, ro. I might as well just finish now because Oops, that's a bit big. I'll make it a bit smaller. One thing that one should also practice, and don't look at my characters for the correct one there, is the proportion between the different characters. Wa, o, and finally which looks a lot like she, but with one of these lines going down. It's from the bottom, so it's a swash from the bottom. So you have the ones that are the easiest to mix up, I think, are the shi, so, tsu, no, and n. So a lot of care has to be taken making sure the angles are correct. And they are all in shot. Yes, that is good. So we have, in addition, of course, you can also do the Dakuten on the K line and get your ga, gi, gu, ge, go, and the za, ji, zu, ze, zo, da, ji, zu, de, do. And then on the H line, of course, the ba, bi, bu, be, bo. And the handakten, pa, pi, pu, pe, po. And just like with the hiragana, when you do the anything from the E line, so like ki plus small ya, for instance, becomes kya. I will go through the rest of the combinations in a separate video because there are quite a few of them. And I think the main thing, first of all, is to learn the characters, practice it, and then try to remember the characters and the differences between the ones that are similar. I suppose one should really practice them a bit more than you get exposed to them. So one thing that is probably a good idea is that once you start learning to write sentences in Japanese, for instance, that do not contain katakana, a good way to practice is to actually write it in hiragana and katakana, remembering, of course, which one you would use in practice. But it's a very good way to work on remembering the katakana, to do it that way. So whatever words you learn, try to write them both in hiragana and katakana, and that way you will learn it a lot faster. So I think I'll leave it there for today. I think that's enough for one video. This is quite a lot, but the thing is, of course, because this is YouTube, this is not a class or anything, you can watch it over again if you need to repeat things. You don't have to actually watch these as I publish them either. You can spread it out over time as and when it suits you. So I think it also makes sense just to do them all now in one go. And next episode, perhaps I'll do the combinations and talk a little bit about how you construct transliterations into Japanese, for instance, of your names, of names in general, or other words in general as well. So, right. I think that's it for today. So thank you very much for watching. Domo arigato. And I will see you next time with more Japanese. Sayonara. Goodbye for now. Bye bye.